What if your body isn't just a machine you happen to live in, but an essential, inseparable part of who you actually are? Today, we're jumping back to the 7th century to explore a debate from the theologian Maximus the Confessor, an ancient argument about body and soul that you'll see feels more relevant than ever.
So this is the central question, right? Is our physical form an essential part of who we are, or is it just a temporary shell, maybe even a prison for a more important spiritual self? How you answer this? Well, it changes pretty much everything.
So our starting point for all this is a really foundational idea from Maximus, this concept of an eternal blueprint for all of creation.
Maximus calls these blueprints logi, or principles. Now, think of them like the DNA of reality, the divine, unchanging code that determines not just what everything is, but what it's meant to be. Pretty deep stuff. And the implication here is, well, it's profound. It means every person, every animal, every single star was created with a predetermined divine purpose. Our lives, in this view, are really a journey toward fulfilling, or, turning away from, this perfect God-given blueprint. Okay, so armed with this idea of eternal blueprints, Maximus takes on a huge controversy of his time. What's the deal with the physical body? Was it part of the original divine plan, or was it some kind of cosmic mistake? This was the core argument he was fighting against. Some thinkers at the time believed the material world, and yeah, our bodies, were an unfortunate afterthought, like a fall from a purely spiritual, perfect state. They were basically arguing that God was somehow constrained or forced into making this flawed physical reality against his better judgment. So on one side, you have this view that the body is just an accident, a deviation. But Maximus says, no way. He argues that God willingly and purposefully created our physical forms. They aren't a bug in the system, they're an absolutely essential feature of the divine plan. And for Maximus, suggesting God was somehow cornered into creating something he didn't want is, and I quote, the greatest blasphemy. It just completely undermines the idea of an all-powerful, all-wise creator. Therefore, the logic follows. The body must be good because God willed it into existence, period.
Now, to prove the inherent goodness of the body, Maximus presents his ultimate evidence. He turns to the central mystery of his faith, the incarnation of Christ.
Okay, so the argument starts right here. The physical body that Christ took on wasn't some alien form. It was a human body, taken from us, meaning it was made of the very same stuff as ours, fundamentally and truly human. And listen, this wasn't a costume or some kind of temporary disguise. Maximus really stresses that this was a complete and total union. Christ perfectly became man, fully embracing every single aspect of human nature, which, and this is crucial, includes a physical body. This right here is the critical point. After the resurrection, that human body wasn't just discarded like an old set of clothes. It was glorified. It ascended into heaven and is now seated at the right hand of the Father. And what that means is that a human body holds a place of ultimate honor in the cosmos, forever. This powerful line just sums it all up. Because Christ united a human body to his divinity, that means human bodies themselves are part of the story of salvation. They are not something to be escaped from, but something to be saved and perfected right alongside the soul. So now Maximus takes this huge big picture thinking and applies it to a very specific and pretty contentious question. When exactly does a human being get its soul? The question was basically this. Is the soul present from the very beginning, or is there some kind of waiting period? Does an embryo exist for a time before it becomes truly and fully human? Maximus just lays out the absurdity of this delayed ensoulment theory, which suggests this bizarre sequence of transformations from one kind of being to another. As he sharply puts it, how can a human being be the father of a plant, or a horse, or a cow? The whole idea is just logically incoherent. A theory of gradual assembly like this suggests God creates something imperfectly at first, and then has to come back later to finish the job. For Maximus, this points to a clear weakness on the part of the creator, which, in his worldview, is simply impossible. And this brings us to his final, definitive conclusion, which ties everything together, both the purpose of the body and the moment human life truly begins. He returns one last time to Christ as the perfect model for humanity. If Christ is the template for a perfect human, and he became a complete human being at the very moment of his conception, then that must be the principle for all of us. No delay, no stages, just a complete human from the very start. So, human nature isn't two separate parts, body and soul, that get assembled on a timeline. No, it is a single, unified reality from the very first moment of its existence. The body and the rational soul are created together as one indivisible whole. So we're left with this powerful idea from nearly 1,400 years ago: you are not a soul trapped in a body. You are an integrated whole. In an age of digital avatars, artificial intelligence, and deep questions about consciousness, what does it mean to insist that our physical embodied nature is not a bug, but a fundamental feature of what it means to be human? Something to think about.